what is the secret to a happy married life?
That's a $1 million question, and I've been married to the same lady for last 40 years.
Wow.
I've still not found out what is the secret. But I guess the secret of any marriage or partnership, if I may use a larger word, the secrecy is accepting the other person the way he is or the way he is not, or she is or she is not. Accepting. Now, accepting, I may be using a little bit of play of words, and allow me to do that. Accepting doesn't mean agreeing. Accepting means the person is like that. I'm not using the word happy, but I'm using the word successful.
Right.
That, do you mean to say that, or anybody means to say that we don't go on the wrong side of it? Yes, we do. But we have a successful marriage where she has started adopting to the way of life we are, and I have started adopting to the way life they are. It is normally said to a woman that once you get married, you will get a lady called Saas, who will be of ABCD variety. Let me tell you about my mother-in-law. She is 85. She is a little hard of hearing. She comes to our home and lives with us for about some time, a month or two sometimes. And she puts on the television at 85 volume. If you think I do not have a mother-in-law problem, I do. I do. But what's and she wants to have lunch and dinner with me when I'm home. Okay. Now, the more I accept that, it is for the pleasure of my mother-in-law, or is it for the safety and pleasure of my wife? The answer is the second.
Yeah.
That's what acceptance means. And it makes a huge difference.
Right.
Huge difference. हमको ये समझ लेना है कि after all, what is the tipping point which when accepted, the rest will fall in place. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. एक piece fit हो गया, पूरा का पूरा rectangle fit हो जाएगा. It is those 1 or 2 or 3 pieces which are going off, not the entire rectangle.
Alright, some very critical needs or wants of a person. For example, the way you shared, like, your wife's mother. Like, if you accept the wife's mother, that's enough to keep the wife happy, for example. Yeah,
that's it.
Right, makes sense.
Because it's a mutual thing.
Right.
The moment I respect her that she's 85 and she's hard of hearing and she listens to it, she respects my mother or my chachi or whatever. It is very, very reciprocal.
Right. And I think, like, as you said that accepting the way they are and the way they are not. So I guess that also leaves no room for any wronging or criticism and all of that as well.
Wronging and criticism also works in a very peculiar manner. One is criticism for the sake of saying that you are wrong and I told you so. This I told you so is a very, very damaging statement. If you have to say something after 16 years or 15 years of marriage or 40 years of marriage and say, look my dear, this is something which you can shift, versus this is what you need to shift and it is not shifted for 40 years. The two have got very different connotations.
Right, and two very different impacts.
Very, very two different impact. Because then you are bringing the life of 40 years into question. Here you say that, well, if you shift like this, it will be better. It will be better. And it does work out. It does work out.
Right. And I think with no wronging or no criticism of the kind that you're saying, like, I think there's always a positive way to criticize and a negative way to criticize, right? Like,
I don't normally get into the positivity or negativity. It is the objective of criticism.
Right, that makes sense.
And I would not use the word criticism. It's the objective of what would it be available, what would happen in case they were to behave a little differently.
Correct. I think in the Indian context, we as individuals, we are closely tied to our families. So by default, when we get married, we get, like, closely tied to our partner's family, for example, as well, right? And I think it's not something that always leads to a seamless transition. Especially, I think when we were chatting before the podcast, you mentioned that when people get married, the mother of the groom and the father of the groom and the bride and the groom, they don't know the roles they have to play as the new stakeholders. So I would love to learn from you about that.
You brought up this question, Kritika, and this question brings me to a dimension which I'm addressing as a pre-marital coach.
Got it.
Now, this pre-marital coach has started from a concept wherein, because of certain directors in the film industry, I don't want to name them, a certain channel on the television, where a perception is made about a marriage.
Right.
And that perception of the marriage has gone wrong widely because they are unable to make a difference or distinction between a wedding or a marriage. The wedding day is considered as a marriage. Ain't. Wedding is a function of 3 hours. Marriage is for 45 years, 50 years, 100 years. Okay. So जब ये fairy tale wedding और pre-wedding shoot को marriage मान लेते हैं, that's where the things start going wrong, actually much before even the wedding day, much before. Because which color the gown will be there, what will be the food, what time will you come, what time
What
will you
will be the
not
gifts?
come, what will be the gifts, and where we'll go for the honeymoon, and so on and so forth. So the rift normally starts much in advance, which is shoved under the carpet. Okay. So when we get into premarital coaching, I insist that both the parents and the bride and the groom and a distant relative also joins in, because these are the distant relatives who are the biggest influencers of the mother and the father, the chachi and the mausi and the buas of the lot. Okay, ये reality है life की. Okay, let us not underestimate whether they have good intention or bad intention. I'm not getting there. Nobody has got any bad intention. उनके जीने का तरीका अलग है, और वो जीने का तरीका ऐसे अलग है that when the way where they were growing up in 65s and 75s and 85s, we are not in that area. We are not. So let the 2024 couple behave at least for 2024, if not for 2044. But their marriage is going to go up to 2054 till they really sort of handle it. So the premarital coaching takes care of making sure that the father-in-law, mother-in-law, both, the distant relative and the parents, they come and talk to each other in a manner which is important. Okay, what are the important factors? It is the time management which is most important. The whole thing has to be started with time management. कब वो दफ्तर जाएगी, कब वो दफ्तर से आएगी, कब वो खाना बनाएगी, नहीं बनाएगी, कौन बनाएगा, who will wash the clothes, who will do the utensils, who will take care of the house, who will take care of the... These are all real factors where the rift happens. Normally you will find it is all about... You'll be shocked. I am absolutely shocked. It's about doing the utensils, keeping the almirahs clean, keeping the house in order, washing clothes, who will cook, what will be cooked, and so on and so forth. If that is resolved, and when I say resolved, doesn't mean resolved forever. How will you resolve it when there is a debate? That's the issue. So when you recognize there is a debate, we come together and resolve it. So even if they are living distant, maybe in a different city, but the interference or what's happening tonight, what are you doing, how are you doing, etc., the interference continues. And that interference creates sometimes a little bit of friction.
So what is your advice to, like, I don't know, young couples maybe in either keeping the interference at bay or...
Keep the interference at bay. Understand why she is refusing what she is refusing. Talk to her. It's absolutely always very clear to talk to her. Okay. People will come and say that she doesn't understand. Okay. I am saying she doesn't understand, I get that. But have you tried enough? And that enough is always a debatable subject. Have you tried enough? If the enough is not working out, then to take the second call, that the interference will not be there. For example, I have got a professor in IIM Bangalore who says that my father used to interfere with me as to how I should raise my son. I told him in the first shot itself, you raised me good, bad or ugly, I will raise my son. Stay away. Similarly, we will have to say that, look my dear, you lived your life, mother-in-law, you lived your life, allow us to live our life. Period. Period. Now what happens? Why this thing works? It works because this should not be as a revolt. This has to be an understanding. So the tonality, the words, the vocabulary that is used has to be very carefully chosen. I am a person who is extremely sensitive about the vocabulary, tonality, and the timing. of the statement which is being made. Extremely important. Vocabulary the first, tonality the second, and timing the third. It is very, very important to communicate what you are communicating.
Absolutely. And I think that comes from your objective of having the conversation.
Absolutely.
Are you
Absolutely.
getting
Absolutely.
purely reactive, or are you out there to,
To
you know,
resolve it.
to resolve it?